And welcome back to another episode of The Debrief. I'm your host, Summer Hashmi, joined by my co-host,
Sophia Palumbo.
And today we've got some interesting stories to share with you guys. But before we get into it, we just want to give you guys a quick trigger warning.
Yeah, this is our mental health episode. It's probably going to be our heaviest episode. We'll be talking about the importance of mental health in sport, but also the trigger warning, as Summer mentioned, for eating disorders and body image issues, which we will be talking about in this episode. This is something that disproportionately affects female athletes compared to male, so we're going to be focusing a lot on that. So just to give you guys a warning, if that's something that you're uncomfortable with, this may not be the best episode for you, but if you're okay with that, then strap right in and let's get to it.
Yeah. Before we get into, I guess, our tea time, let's start off with some hot goss this episode.
Right. So our current event is Paris 2024 focused a couple months ago, but they did something really cool that they coined the Mind Zone. So basically this was just a space for athletes that focused specifically on their mental health. It was basically a space, kind of a low sensory zone. If you look at images, it's a lot of like blues and purples. It's pretty dimly lit. It's just a space where athletes can relax. There was a lot of virtual reality activities. There were 2,300 sessions with athletes from over 100 or from 148 countries. They did stuff like gratitude postcards that family members could send to them and they could send to their family members. Looking at their stats, it says that 90% of users were satisfied, so this was obviously a space that athletes really enjoyed using. I think it was a great thing. The Olympics is obviously very stressful. I cannot imagine having to deal with the stress of competing in the Olympic Games, so I'm really happy that they added this spot.
I think this is actually really cool. I feel like as athletes, there's a lot of, and this is not the best comparison, but Inside Out 2.
Right.
Yeah, they did a really good job of highlighting.
Right, a fellow hockey girl.
Yeah, a fellow hockey girl.
Yep.
They did a good job of highlighting what anxiety looks like. Right? And I feel like as athletes, a lot of times...
Especially in sport.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As athletes, a lot of times you kind of dismiss it. Right. And you don't really know. Like... Everyone's like, oh, like it's normal to have nerves, right? But like, there's definitely a fine line between nerves and anxiety, and and anxiety can lead to other things, and right, and that's what kind of I feel like she's the main girlie that leads to all the other girlies,
right? Yeah, so exactly, but they had this VR experience. They also did painting and yoga, so just a bunch of relaxing things. I love that they did this. I think it is such a smart idea.
I'm relaxed just talking about it. Like, that sounds so, like, just quiet, relaxing.
Right, they have beanbag chairs in there.
Oh, we love a good beanbag chair.
I'm just really happy that they did this because it shows that the IOC and the Paris organizers had a big emphasis on mental health. Yeah. And that's really, really great to see.
Well, I feel like specifically after the 2020 Olympics,
right?
Just because athletes were pulling out, they didn't
so isolated.
Oh yeah,
they had no family or friends there with them.
Yeah, and like athletes were, I feel like specifically because of COVID, that I think made it a lot worse. But like there was. After 2020, there was a huge emphasis on mental health.
100%.
Characters like Simone Biles and Naomi Osaka, they were definitely huge
advocates for it.
Yeah. And they definitely changed the narrative around mental health, and the stigma is kind of related to it. So the fact that they actually have a space like this to kind of allow you to relax and de-stress and just kind of turn your mind off.
Right.
Almost. That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm happy. It just goes to show that talking about it is so important, because I feel like Simone Biles is the biggest example of, and we'll get more into her in this episode, but like she was probably the biggest advocate for mental health during the Tokyo Olympics, and it's because her speaking out about it that we get stuff like this now. And obviously, it helped athletes a lot.
Well, I agree. I think if they don't talk about it, and if you don't make a stink about it, like,
then nothing's gonna get done.
Exactly. Not to say that this is something to make a stink about, but it's definitely like you definitely have to advocate in order for things to get done.
100%. And she's been the advocate.
Yeah. I guess moving on to our tea time this episode.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we start off with one of our first characters, Caitlin Ohashi.
Right. So just a bit of a backstory on her. She's an American elite gymnast who unfortunately developed an eating disorder and was competing on a fractured back with 2 torn shoulders. And due to this, she decided to drop from the elite level that she was competing at in gymnastics to the collegiate level, where she competed for UCLA. And there she has gone viral online for her perfect 10-point routines, 10.0 perfect routines on floor and beam. She's racked up, I think her floor routine has about 46 million views on YouTube.
Holy.
Yeah, so she's...
That's insane.
Right. And she's somebody who's been very honest and open about how deeply flawed gymnastics is when it comes to body image and how the coaches are just so toxic. And she's
sure.
Right, and she's fortunately escaped that at UCLA. She's a lot happier at UCLA. She did like a small documentary that you guys can find on YouTube, and she's a lot happier at UCLA. But she was body shamed. Since she was 14, she had body shamers. Her coaches were part of the problem, a huge part of the problem. This is a quote from her. She says, "The way my coaches would kind of put it, it was not the best way. We weren't educated ever on healthy foods and what to eat. It was more like, don't eat, you look like an elephant, you look like you swallowed a pig." So this is stuff that would be said to her and her teammates. So
that's insanity.
Yeah, so you're growing up with this. You're in a little leotard. You can see everything in that uniform. Your coaches are saying this to you. She developed an eating disorder. I don't even know where to start, because it's so, like, I can't believe that this happened to a kid. And this is something that's really...
Yeah, she was a kid.
This is something that is really prevalent, especially in gymnastics and figure skating, which again are aesthetic sports, so there's a lot of emphasis on how you look
versus how you perform.
Right. And of course, not eating means you're not fueling yourself, so your performance is going to lessen. So you're expected to have this thin, ideal body, but you're still expected to be an athlete and do these insane tricks. You have to be so strong to do gymnastics, to do flips like that.
100%. And so it's crazy, because as athletes, like, you're trained on what to eat, what good foods are, what bad foods are.
And she obviously wasn't. She did not receive that training.
But, like, and I'm not a gymnast, so I can't speak to this, but it's crazy that you're coaching at such a high level, yet you don't know what nutrition is.
Yeah.
Like, let's be so for real.
Yeah. They did
educate yourselves.
Yeah, they didn't care about these kids. Obviously, they thought it was more important to look good on the floor.
I feel like even now, like in 2024, even though we have all this information, we know, like, every body type is different in terms of how every metabolism is different, how they metabolize food. Right. So that's a big thing, like, looking at that, and, like, I'm not a nutritionist, so I can't tell you word for word, or you might have to fact check me on this, but, like, there's, within the nutrition realm, you need to eat, or there's different ways to eat if you're trying to do certain things. Like, if you go to the gym, you're trying to bulk up, you're going to eat this kind of food, versus if you're trying to cut, you're going to eat this kind of food, right?
100%.
So it's like, I'm sure, like, in terms of performance, same thing. Like, I know before hockey, you eat light, you eat carbs, lots of carbs, you load up on pasta, good carbs, obviously, and then post-game, you load up on protein.
Right.
You drink a protein shake.
Yeah. So this experience of, well, her lack of experience in this realm led to this. She said that her and her gymnast friends started playing quote-unquote games at age 12 about who could eat under 500 calories a day. They would often measure each other's thighs and weigh themselves approximately 6 times a day, and they also challenged each other to throw up meals. So this, she was competing, this is what she was competing under. It was a very obviously toxic environment. She was told all the time, you're so good, but you don't look like a gymnast. And because she wasn't eating, you're more prone to injury. Again, she had a fractured back and 2 torn shoulders. She just couldn't put up with this anymore. Like, she probably could have made it to the Olympics, but like, it wasn't worth it to her to be competing under people who were saying this to her. So that's why she dropped down to the collegiate level. And it's so sad that she was somebody that could have been, like, she got a 10 on floor and beam. She could have been an Olympian. But because of stuff like this, she couldn't make it there. And good for her for realizing, I can't do this anymore. I need to put myself and my mental health first, and I need to drop out of this.
Yeah. Good for her. That it's just so disappointing though, that people that can compete at that level are not able to because of toxic coaches.
Right.
Like, in my opinion, coaches will make or break your experience.
Right.
Like, I've had some issues with coaches over the years, and like, between them and COVID, like, I did not want to play anymore. And like, on a personal level, I can tell you, coaches will make or break the experience. So the fact that at that high level, toxic coaching is still, like, not to say that it never ended. It was always a thing.
Yeah.
But to say that hasn't changed over the years is ridiculous.
Yeah. And she has found her coach at UCLA is Miss Val. She's a very prominent coach in the gymnastics world. And she hasn't had these issues, thank God. That's amazing to hear. We love to hear about a not toxic coach, especially when it's in a sport that's so typically toxic like gymnastics. So we love to hear that. But it's just, and good for her for being so open and honest about it. She's given lots of interviews where she's talked openly about her eating disorder and openly about her body image issues. So it's amazing that she's been able to have the courage to do this. And then I'm sure like so many people have been able to find comfort and support in her sharing her story.
100%.
Yeah.
Look at all those little girls who are now coming into the gymnastic world, looking at figures like her and again, like Simone Biles and the other various gymnasts who've come out about their mental health.
Right.
Like, it's so amazing to hear that they have that support system now that was never there 10, 15 years ago.
100%. And so this ties in to our next athlete, who is Evgenia Medvedeva. So she is a Russian figure skater who, in combination with harsh training methods and an eating disorder, she developed severe back injuries and had to retire the sport at only the age of 22.
Holy.
Yeah, so she was somebody else who unfortunately had an eating disorder. She hasn't been as open about it as Caitlin has, but she has confirmed it. And she basically comes from a team in figure skating known as Team, and I'm going to butcher her name, I'm sorry, but Team Tutsabritse. So she's a coach that's known for teaching skaters harsh methods in order to perform like with these really insane jumps. That's why a lot of them have back issues and they're retiring at ages like 22. And her her major competitors that she trains are usually ages 14 to 17. Like, that's her prime age, because she literally wears them out so bad that by the time they reach 20, like, they can't compete like that anymore.
But that should be, like, there should be, not to say that should be illegal. That should be illegal. But, like, there should be training. Well, obviously not. No training is going to stop people like that.
Right.
But, like, there should be some kind of, like, repercussion for toxic coaches.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, they're cancerous and they're causing issues.
Like, she's getting away with it. Like, she's still coaching. Like,
she's not the only one.
Yeah.
She's not the only one. I guarantee you. There's so many coaches at so many different levels, even at the house league level, like at that recreational level.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there's coaches who are abusing
100%
their players. Like, it's craziness that's tolerated at that high level.
Yeah.
Like, the IOC has no control over this stuff.
Yeah.
There's no way. Yeah. They have to know that some of this stuff is happening, and the fact that they're kind of turning a blind eye to this and allowing it to continue to happen.
Right. I think that what recently happened with Kamila Valieva at Beijing 2022, there's going to be some reform. But yeah, it's definitely not.
But like, it took them how many years for them to figure this out? Like, the Olympics have been happening for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
And this is not new. Like, this has been going on, again, from the beginning of time.
Right.
So why is it that we are now in 2024, mental health is no longer, I can't say it's no longer a stigma, but it's less of a stigma. It's something we talk about openly. Athletes are talking about it openly.
Right.
So why can we not crack down on coaches?
Right, which is the source for a lot of it.
That's the real, like, I think from what I'm seeing is a lot of our stories even today have to do with toxic coaches. They're causing problems. And if it's not a coach, it's a parent.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no player is doing that to themselves with their own free will. It's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of social pressure, especially in these sports, and the idea that it's better to be lean than to be creating a body that would be best for that sport. Like, that's still prioritized over even being the best at that sport, which is insane.
That is insanity. Specifically more the aesthetic sports like figure skating, like gymnastics, where that is a big part of the sport. Like, I could not, I don't know how these girls do it. Like, I don't know how, because, like, kudos to them. They go through a lot.
There is a lot of emphasis on it.
Moving on to one of our final characters. It's one of my favorites. She was my hype queen of the week a couple episodes ago. Simone Biles. She's definitely been an active voice.
100%.
In terms of mental health awareness and making sure that athletes are prioritizing their mental health.
100%. She was, I guess, pretty quiet on this issue prior to Tokyo 2020, but then when she competed that year, which she dropped out of, and she credited it to mental health issues, she eventually revealed that it was twisties that she was experiencing. That is basically when your mind and your body are at a disconnect. It's essentially when you do a move so many times over, you become so familiar with it that it goes further than second nature. You just lose it. Like, you just get so used to doing something that you just, saying it out loud is like, it doesn't make sense. But when you're experiencing it, the way that she described it, it's like, it truly is a disconnect. Your body just gets so used to do it that it's just doing it, and you lose your mind in the process of doing it. That's crazy. Like, she was talking about how she would be in the air and she wouldn't know where she would be in the air. Like, she didn't know. So that obviously makes it very unsafe to compete. Like, she doesn't know what she's landing on, whether that's her feet or her neck. So it was literally a safety issue that, like, she had to drop out. She felt like it was almost like she didn't have a choice. Like, if your mind's not cooperating, this is something that takes a really long time to get over.
No, for sure. That sounds so scary.
Yeah.
That sounds extremely scary.
Yeah. She said that she felt like I was fighting my body and my mind to do these tricks. So there was obviously a very clear disconnect between what was going on up here and what she was trying to get her body to do.
Like, I know in gymnastics, a lot of it is your mind. It's a mental game. A lot
it really
of it is
is,
a mental game, right? So, like, the fact that, I don't know, that's very scary to even think about. Like, being in the air, your mind is one place, your body is in another place.
Yeah. That's what it was, yeah.
Like, that's just saying that out loud is like, whoa.
Yeah. It's not something that was fun for her to deal with, and it took her a really long time to build it back up. After she got home from that, like, she took a break from gymnastics. She had to relearn the sport, basically. Like, she started with just doing flips again. Like, it was,
talk about baby steps.
Yeah, she goes into depth in this in her documentary, which is on Netflix. But
which we'll also be talking about later.
Yes, we talked about that, but she goes into depth on that, and it's insane because they filmed the whole thing. It's an insane process, and she's somebody that she faced a lot of backlash for deciding to step out, drop out. Everybody called her a quitter.
Well, I remember that being huge. Like, that was one of the biggest moments in sports.
Yeah, it definitely was. But she did the right thing, because she would have hurt herself, because she was not in any sort of place to be competing.
People need to take a step back and remember that these athletes are human. Like, all the hate and backlash she was getting, I remember all of that when that was happening.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Even same thing with Naomi Osaka when she decided to do what she did. It was crazy. The backlash she got was ridiculous.
Right.
And it's just like it's so, like, I feel like as fans, as spectators, you glorify these people and you put them on pedestals.
Right.
And I feel like that's added pressure for them. And not only is it added pressure, but then they almost, like, you're dehumanizing them in a way, right?
100%. She said, I get that we're entertainers, but we're human too.
Yeah.
So.
Right there.
That sums it up.
Yeah.
Like.
Right there.
She had very high expectations, and I don't know if it was the pressure of the Olympics that caused this, but either way, she experienced this. And she ultimately, she did the right thing by dropping out.
100%. I agree.
And the rest of her team, they picked up. Picked up, and they kept going. Yeah, and they won the gold team. Yeah. So they did just...
They did what they needed to do. And she came back and killed it. She came back and was better than ever. They finished gold.
Yeah, in Paris, yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? She took that time that she needed, and now she's back better than ever. And
that ties into a really good quote or idea is elite sport a system that no longer recognizes the value of human life and human dignity, where people have been robbed of their will and made to be objects. Like, isn't that insane? I read that and I was like, hold on.
Yeah.
Hold on. I think it ties really well into that. I think that I can't imagine what it's like to be competing at that level, but I feel like you do lose a sense of your humanity, and it does feel like just perform, gold. Like, I'm sure at some point you do start to feel like an object for these coaches, for the public, for your country to just win.
Yeah. And at that level, you're not only just representing a city, you're representing your country.
Yeah.
Like, you were picked out of, like, there's 4 people that go.
There are 5 on the team.
5 on the team. So you're one of 5 people that get picked. And in the U.S., there's a bunch of gymnasts there.
Oh, for sure.
Like, the talent is incredible.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're one of 5 people that get picked to go.
Right.
Out of all these other people. And I feel like, again, gymnastics is one of those sports where it's like everyone's replaceable. You're replaceable. She's replaceable. There's always a younger, better model.
Right.
If that makes sense, right? So, like, the fact that like you're at that level competing, representing your country, even with all of that added stress,
right,
and are still able to perform and are still able to get gold, like, that is insanity to me. Like,
it's
kudos
incredible.
to them.
It's incredible, but it's definitely, that's something that applies fairly to men and women, and honestly, like, studies have found that men and women are similar when it comes to mental health issues. The main thing that affects women is body image, and again, which leads to eating disorder issues.
Yeah.
But I found this really great quote from this girl named Victoria Garrick. She is a D1 volleyball player for USC. She said, female athletes have pressure from society and Instagram to look one way, and then we have pressure from our team and the sports world to look another way, which I thought was a really important statement. I thought it really just summed it up. I'm not an athlete, but I can't imagine having to be told that you need to be one way in order to be best for your sport, but you also need to be, like,
feminine and poised and graceful.
Right.
And not overly, like, well, we talked about this, where kind of athletes are forced to, like, either be feminine or butch. There's no in between. Right? So it's like finding that balance, and as a society, we need to take a step back and let people do what they need to do. Right. We are too heavily involved
in how people look.
In everyone's business. My favorite line is, mind your business. if it's not you, your sister, your mom, your dad, your brother, uncle, or even uncle and aunt is a little step out there. Like, mind your business.
Yeah.
If it doesn't affect you directly, mind your business.
Yeah.
I guarantee you what Simone Biles does with her hair tomorrow doesn't directly affect you.
Yeah. And it doesn't affect if she wins.
Exactly.
So let her cook.
Let her do what she needs to do.
Let her do what she needs to do.
Like, I that's another thing I don't understand. People are too heavily involved in other people's business.
100%. Like, people, they need to take a step back, especially when it comes to stuff like this and critiquing women's appearance.
Oh yeah.
Which is what leads to this. Like, this is what happens.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. But it's also important to know that in order to have this good mental health, which is what we want for athletes, what everyone should want for athletes,
everyone should want for humans,
right? And what athletes should be educated on. Like, I feel like they need proper. I don't know how you felt in hockey, if you had proper resources and proper teachings in order to.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. I think, and the other thing is, like, there's a lot of points in my, I like to say my hockey career, but when I played, where I went through mental health issues, but I didn't realize they were mental health issues. And so I just, like, my parents would coin it as something else, but it was really like, I went through a depressive period.
Right.
And not to say I had depression, but there was definitely an period of time where, like, it just kept getting worse and worse. And then, like, specifically during COVID, for me, it was just a mixture of things. But pre-COVID, or that year was my grade 11 year. Mm-hmm. So we got shut down. And then I went into my grade 12 year, my final hockey season in the minor league. Mm-hmm. And it got shut down. And so I had no outlet.
Right.
And, like, that created its own mental health beast because hockey was my outlet.
Yeah.
But then there was also an element where, like, when I was 14, my coach, he would bench me and this other girl. And part of it, there was a racism piece, but part of it was, like, it would be one thing if it was, like, third period, last 5 minutes, you know, I'm all about taking one for the team. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
But at 13, 14 years old, your team's losing. I'm sorry. Putting on your number one line is not going to make a difference.
Right.
And not to say, like, I did what I needed to do.
Yeah.
So it was just, there was a lot of targeting there, but that crushed me. That crushed me. And so, like, there was a period of time where I didn't want to play anymore.
Right.
I told my parents, I said, I'm not coming back next week. I don't want to play. Yeah. And a lot of athletes suffer similar issues.
Right.
Somebody we'll talk to through this season, she went through various injuries, dealt with benching for unnecessary reasons. Like, one of my really close friends, she played hockey as well, and the same thing. Like, there's a lot of, like, and I blame coaches for this.
That's a big thing. A lot of studies show that having a positive connection with your teammates and coaches, that very much impacts your mental health.
Oh, yeah. Like, because your coaches are a resource for you, right? They're the resource that links every other resource.
Right.
So if they're not providing you mental health resources, or if they're not creating a safe and healthy environment,
then look at what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's another reason why girls quit playing sports.
Yeah.
After they there's quotes and stats out there that say after puberty, girls stop playing.
Yeah.
A lot of girls drop out of sports in grade 9. Mm-hmm. One, because they're going into high school and it's a lot, but two, their coaches put additional pressure that make the sport not worth it anymore.
It's not fun anymore.
No.
Yeah.
And so when Simone Biles is like, I need to take a step back, I totally understand where she's coming from.
But yeah, she was basically, like, saying to all of her haters who are on the couch eating chips, like, you can't even do a cartwheel, so don't. It's always those don't try telling me I'm a quitter. Like,
yeah, I feel like it's come down, like, this, what we've been saying basically for the past 30 minutes comes down to 2 points. 1, mind your business.
Yeah.
And 2, coaches, do a better job. Do a better job at.
Yeah, there needs to be more resources.
Yeah.
And proper education.
Yeah, like, I think once you educate them, then again the flip will switch. And I think as we go into the coaching world, like now I'm entering that coaching world, I'm trying to make sure that every single one of my players feels welcomed, they feel important, and they feel like confident.
Right.
Because I feel like if you play with confidence, and if you're given that confidence, like people are always like, oh, like just you have the skill set. Just be a little bit more confident when you hold the puck. Well, that comes back to you, sir. You're telling me all this, that. You're doing this, that. And then you're telling me to be more confident. You have to build that confidence. It just doesn't come.
Right.
Right? So I think now that we're entering this coaching world, we'll definitely be hopefully making a difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess this wraps us up.
You go talk to your friends, talk to my friends, talk to me.
Okay, and now on to our next segment, one of my favorites, Chick Chats. So we are getting the opportunity to speak to one of my really good friends, my best friend from high school. She played hockey, competitive ice hockey, for basically her entire life. The second she could walk, she started playing, and she is now on the varsity Queens rowing team and still plays junior hockey. So we are going to get the opportunity to chat with her about her mental health journey, and she's had a bunch of injuries over the span of her career. So just coming back from injury and how the two of them kind of work together. And I guess now we're getting that call. Hey, Liv. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Okay, so I guess that means we get right into this. Can you share your personal journey with mental health and how it's kind of impacted your athletic career?
Yeah, so growing up, I had quite a few challenges with my mental health and my peers all around me, going in and out of the hockey change room, even with my rowing team in university. I've always felt like left out or not part of the team. So I felt like it has taught me like resilience and self-awareness in a way. I was balancing high expectations with school and sports, competition, and the pressure to perform. So I felt overwhelmed, and through my experience has taught me to prioritize my mental health first and foremost before like sports comes into play.
That sounds like a long journey, and it's clearly you've been able to navigate it in a positive way. So that sounds amazing. But I guess this takes us to our next question.
Right. So we were wondering, who do you turn to for support when you're facing any mental health challenges, and how important is that support in your recovery process?
So support is huge. I've learned now to trust my friends more so, but my family, first and foremost, is the person I turn to. Growing up, I had struggles trusting my friends because they were the ones initially that turned on me. So trying to make connections and finding friends was hard. So my family, and my mom especially, has been my rock in getting me through scenarios. But I've also reached out to different mentors, and I have like a therapist I can also talk to be able to address things I might not always feel comfortable talking to my mom about.
That person definitely sounds like they made a difference. And I think it's so important to have a support system in your daily life, especially if you're dealing with mental health challenges. But this, I guess, takes us to our next question. Resources. What resources did you find helpful in managing your mental health struggles?
So resources for me would be finding strategies that help me. Sometimes if it is a sport that's doing it, stepping away from that specific setting and doing something else with my friends, that's one of my resources, just stepping away from the pressure to, like I mentioned before, like talking to someone, going to therapy, and really just finding someone that understands what you're going through and can be there to support you each step of the way.
Those are definitely some good ones. I wish I had those growing up.
100%.
And I guess this takes us to our last question then.
Right. So what advice would you give to young athletes who are struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, so my first and like biggest advice would be to remember your worth is not defined by your performance, not by your sport, not by anything else. your worth is who you are as a person, and the external factors, whether you be an athlete, good at school, arts, doesn't matter. It's who you are as a person that really does matter.
Wow, I wish I had that advice growing up in
100%.
this athletic world.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank
Liv.
you, Liv.
You have given us a little bit of insight from a athlete's perspective.
100%.
And I guess that wraps this up. Bye.
Thank you, girl.
Oh, I love her.
Love her.
It's nice to kind of get the inside scoop from
A
an
varsity
athlete.
athlete,
Yeah.
100%.
Because I mean, obviously we can talk about this and do our research, but coming from them, they've dealt with it head on, so it's good to hear from them as well.
Right.
But this concludes Chick Chats. On to our next segment, Hype Queen of the Week. You want to go first?
Sure, I'll share mine. So my hype queen of the week is Ali Raceman. And because we were talking about Simone today, I thought of her because she was somebody that has been so supportive of Simone. They're two besties. They're two bestie girls. So like when Simone was going through this, she was just so supportive and was on her side and stood up for her. And we love to see that in a teammate, in a friend. She's obviously an incredible gymnast herself, but I just loved how supportive she was of Simone. So that's why I wanted to highlight her this week.
That's a good one. Mine's a little controversial.
Okay.
I know there's been some incidents, but Becky Hammon, she's the head coach for the Las Vegas Aces. She was actually the first coach in the NBA. She coached the Spurs.
First woman coach?
Yeah, first female coach, head coach, not even just assistant, head coach.
Right, yeah.
And then she took a job with the Spurs, and she has won a back-to-back championship. She's the first WNBA coach to win a back-to-back championship. So she did that with the Aces. And I know there's a little bit of controversy about her, and there was an incident with another player and them getting traded, and everyone kind of has a different story.
What's the controversy? I'm not
she
sure.
was pregnant. So there was a player, she
Yeah.
got pregnant. And then got traded to the LA Sparks.
Oh, okay.
And so there was some allegations of discrimination and just not some
Right.
not
So,
nice things
yeah.
about her being traded because she got pregnant.
Right.
But I think there's a bigger story there. I'm not going to get into that just because, again, I don't have all the facts, and I feel like you need to have all the facts before you can get into a controversial topic like that. But I think overall, besides that one isolated incident, I think she has done a great job of prioritizing her players and their mental health and their well-being. And I think she's just a powerful woman to look up to in the sense that she's broken barriers that nobody has. She was actually in the running for Raptors head coach when I think it was before Nick Nurse actually arrived, or it was after he left, one or the other. But she was in the race for that position. No, it was the same time as Nick Nurse is when they fired KC. But so she was actually in the running for the Raptors head coach position, and she actually declined it for the WNBA. So yeah. But that wraps up our episode today. Thank you for tuning into the debrief.
Yep.
I'm your host, Summer Hashmi, joined by
Sophia Palumbo. Thank you guys for watching.
Do not forget to follow us on our socials and check out our website for more debrief content. Also, this week's prompt is going to do with mental health and well-being. Has there ever been a time where you have felt supported through your mental health journey as an athlete, as a student, as a person, as a female? And if you're willing to share, we'd love to hear it. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Thank you guys. Bye.